ask Twitch Master Scott to go into sub-only mode so that I can try to read something from this raging waterfall of enthusiasm. These people have all gathered together to meet you guys, to meet the creative leaders who are leading a brave team of Bungie developers who are creating Rise of Iron. Let's dig a little bit deeper into what we mean by a large expansion. So I want to take us through this just line by line. First and foremost, especially in the minds of many of our players, we're telling a new story. There's a new campaign. So what can we find in that? And you're taking us to some new places we've never been before.
Yeah, so we have a place called the Plague Land.
Okay.
A new zone is off Cosmodrome.
Okay.
Inside old Russia, so it's this forbidden, dangerous place the Guardians have been able to go for centuries that has been locked off by the Vanguard, by the Iron Lord long ago. And this is what defines the Destiny player experience for so many people in our community. I'm sure so many people in our raging chat room right now. The cooperative experiences that bring Guardians together as new teammates and old friends. Okay, and as we saw in the trailer, with Lord Saladin as a central figure in this new story that you're telling, you've got to think the Crucible is going to weigh pretty heavily in the player experience.
There's a lot to talk about the Crucible. Actually, we're going to get more details about that later. It's a big conversation, lots to say.
Yeah.
But I can say there's new maps. There's an incredible new mode, which I played yesterday, and got people looking at me a lot as I yelled very loudly.
Indeed.
And the 12 people in the room there are going to laugh knowingly because I was yelling very loudly. And new features, which we'll talk about later this summer.
Like you said, yes, we will have all the right conversations with players of the game and other people in the studio who have worked on those things. So today begins a very long conversation about Rise of Iron. There's plenty of time between now and September 20th to unpack all of these things to a greater degree.
Welcome back once again to another patch note show. It's 3.18 and we call this one Rising Flames. There's a good reason for that one as time goes on. As you can see, joining me today is Daniel Fishman alongside Chuck and AJ as well. Once again, bringing us all the lovely commentary of what they think about the patch so far as well. And as per usual, we've got Chuck here, as always, to give us a rundown of the skins and what we're going to see on your screens. We're going to start things off with, well, the reason Rising Flames is called Rising Flames, Fire Lord Naja is finally here. A Naja skin, find out when you see the skin in game. Now this is going to be able to be purchased in game, correct AJ?
That is
part
correct.
of the Odyssey.
It's not part of the Odyssey.
Is it a freaking chest?
No chest.
You just buy it?
Direct purchase, anytime, all the time, forever. You can be manly Naja.
Yep, if you want your Naja to be manly, you can just make it happen.
Just get it. And he's got obviously abilities with this as well. Chuck, main focus on this skin, obviously I can see a bit of a colour difference this time around.
Just a little bit of extra manly fire. It's black and orange. And on the other team, he has a red and white color scheme, which is another intentionally unique.
I was about to ask, will we see potentially in the future, Chuck, a rival monster trader skin?
You know, I don't know. We have more guys that have pet dogs that turn into animals.
Scotty has a pet.
Which is unique to Erling Shin and his lore.
Right. Scotty doesn't transform though.
Oh, that's true.
But she does have a monster that is trained.
She does.
Well, if we go quiet for a second here, just use those abilities again, Papa, because he does say different lines here that are very interesting references. No.
You mirror.
Stomach felt funny.
Oh.
Why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the other side, duh. Hey, animal jokes? It's ear elephant.
What?
Oh, God.
Spike's a good game. It's really fun. So, those are two examples of marketing-based content. And if you don't play either game, you probably have no idea what's going on. So I'll walk everyone through that. In the case of Bungie, the reason why I call it marketing-based content is you notice how they laid out every little thing they were bringing to the table for that audience. And one could say their goal was, well, we want to generate as much buzz as we can around Rise of Iron, the latest expansion. In order to do that, you have to cast a net that actually affects all the players who could potentially, or do potentially, play your game. In the case of Hi-Rez, what they decided to do was highlight major changes in the game that they knew affected all the players. They talked a little bit about patch notes, They introduced a new god, which is their version of champions in that game. They went through a skin, which is something that all players are going to care about as well. So you see that the topics that they bring to the table are just, they're not super specific that maybe only one community or one player would like. They're topics that everyone's going to be affected by, right? Everyone's going to care about. And the reason why it's marketing based, because usually it affects, it affects marketing based goals, generating buzz, generating awareness, viewership, you want high concurrency, you want high views, that kind of thing. So target audience, entire player base, or if your game is big enough, large verticals of players, right? Games that are central esports games, they can get away with this because most players play esports. Again, generating buzz and brand awareness. It's very reasonable to expect viewership peaks, right? Because again, this is something that affects everyone who actually plays the game. And I actually got this example from a lot of the different devs throughout the years who sometimes they would do something fun and casual, and sometimes they would do something very specific and broad. So examples include game reveals, expansions, new content releases, major patch notes and game changes. One way I like to explain it is this going to move the 9 to 5? And the 9 to 5 means if a guy is working 9 to 5, is he actually going to schedule time on his calendar to watch this thing? If he's not, then it's probably not marketing-based content. It's probably too specific or doesn't speak to him as a user. So the next set of content that I want to talk about is community-based content, which, again, in a lot of ways, it reflects how Twitch used to be and how devs would use this all the time. So I want to go through a few examples from Warframe and also the Elder Scrolls game to show you guys what they've done and how the two content types differ. Actually, real quick, and it's also important to note that I don't believe the first two devs don't do these, and these two devs don't do the previous type of content. They're just examples of each.
Bug fix with some of our QA guys, and that was actually an idea that we pulled from the forums.
Yep, and then the after anything.
And then we'll do community creations. No, we'll do the dungeon segment. This is madness. Another new segment we're calling Development versus Reality with our dungeon lead, the funny guy, Mike Finnegan, and our senior QA tester, Jay Hartman. Again, idea that we pulled from the forums.
Then community creations and giveaways, of course, throughout the show.
Whew, made it.
So,
along with Commander Pantheus, who's in Kvatcherina. He sometimes doesn't spawn in, particularly for our Mary Dominion. He will be fixed. We did a thing yesterday where we kind of kicked him in the butt a little bit and made him appear, so if you were stuck on that, it's very possible that he'll be there if you go check now. Otherwise, it will be permanently fixed on Monday. They've been silently listening. So this segment, Anatomy of a Bug Fix, it was taken from the forums, from Treyfart. Thank you very much. Basically, we put up a thread on the forums, just kind of soliciting ideas, like, what would you like to see on the show? Let us know. And this seems like a really interesting one. We're gonna basically talk. They actually didn't do, or it really wasn't even that common.
I think it tends to happen on every.
I think it tends to happen where our testers will come in and they'll handle things and tackle things a certain way, and then we learn to expect kind of what we think that the players are going to do. But there's
sure, we can pack all kinds of new music onto it before we release it. So it is fun.
All right, so the next question, and just to kind of reiterate where we're getting these questions from, it's from the Ask Us Anything thread. It's sticking at the top of general discussion on the forums.
Which drains health instead of energy to cast Desecrate. And you know what? I need some friends because you get more spawns with more people. So let's see who's up. Whisper me in game. My alias is DE Rebecca Square Bracket. You can see it there if you want to join.
Someone just gave our game 20 out of 10.
Really?
Yep.
That's 2 out
Their
of 10.
math is a little sketchy, but otherwise, I love this.
But that might change when it turns into a toggle, right? So let's go back for more. Ooh, for the second best mom. Who's the best mom then? I guess you're real mom. Oh, I guess she's okay. If you want, I'm safe.
Oh, isn't this all just a ploy to get Oxium gifts?
No, but I'm not going to say no to that.
That is unethical, but thank you. Who gave it to you?
That one was from a founder of
Oh.
this. Drew.
Wow.
Let's see how we're doing here.
Yeah, someone's saying beta for eternity.
Oh, now I don't have enough polymer bundle.
So, if you weren't able to tell, two types of content are very different. Right? The first one, again, big, broad, loud, talks to a lot of players, exciting, tone's different, what they're bringing to the table is much different. This is much more engaged. It's rewarding players and talking to an audience that you actually want a quality engagement from. So, community-based content, the way I explain it, is all about the players. It's all about players you actually want to engage with. Target audience can be specific groups of players, people who love you, people who just absolutely want to be a part of whatever you do. Goals usually are about retention and engagement, getting feedback back from the players. With this type of content, what we found is that the peaks aren't really there, but the viewership that you get is very consistent. With that, though, it's also very, very hard to grow. When you think about this audience in general, whatever game it is, there's only going to be a fraction of the players who buy the game who are going to play it every day, who are going to read everything you do, who pay attention to all social media that you put out. And that's totally okay. So examples, community play days. You saw there that the Warframe days were doing that. Developer interviews and Q&As, which can be tricky and can overlap with marketing-based content, but in this case, it's much more casual, right? And with the Elder Scrolls team, it was taking questions from the forums, talking about things that don't necessarily affect the wide mass of experiences. Third, talent shows and highlighting content creators. 4, open development. Open development, I thought it was very important to put on here because a lot of devs still use Twitch for open development and they expect big peaks of viewership. It's just very hard to do. A lot of players will contribute and give you feedback, but most players who play games, even for me, like I don't want to talk to the dev, I just want to play the game. I just want to know what I'm going to get. So community-based content is about the engaged. It's about players who care about you the most. And it's important to understand the differences between the two, because when you think about content scheduling and content planning, you're going to have to figure out what makes sense for your product and where throughout the cycle. So now we've talked about 3 goals, or 3 steps rather. We've talked about a handful of best practices, and then from there, I'll leave you all alone, I promise. The first best practice is what I like to define as cadence of purpose. And the best way to explain it is you want users and viewers to watch you, not because it's Friday at 12. You want users to watch you and engage with you because this thing has happened. An example here for Bangalore is news can reveal esports news, this is a dev stream, now you gotta come watch. That's the cadence of purpose, right? You're giving these users a reason why to watch and when they should watch instead of saying, hey guys, every Friday at 12, you need to come watch our channel. And this is actually from direct feedback from devs because a lot of the time you'll invest so much effort trying to figure out what you're gonna fill Friday with this week in terms of good ideas and content that you kind of miss the point of creating content. It's not just to like hang out. It's actually to serve a purpose. It's actually to serve and fulfill the goal. The other best practice that I like to talk about is planning, mixing, and scheduling. And scheduling does sound kind of contradictory to the first point, but let me explain. So with planning, don't create content just because you can. Creating content is actually really easy. Creating great content is actually super hard. Take your time. Figure out what works for your game. Figure out where you are in your product's life cycle, where your roadmap is, and work backwards from there. Mixing. Mixing is the concept of thinking of community-based content and market-based content as one not being better than the other. It's about intertwining the two and having goals that align with both so that your audience, whether they're hyper-engaged or the broader audience, they're both fulfilled over the course of 3 months, 6 months, a year, that kind of And then the last best practice, which I think a lot of devs absolutely miss, and I think it's the easiest to not miss, is promote, promote, promote. And the idea here is if you have a show, if you have a big reveal, if you're going to engage the community, it doesn't matter what it is. You need to communicate that to your users in whatever way you can. At the very least, it should be a week before. At the very best, it should be a week before. At the very least, it should be 1 or 2 days before. Keep in mind that not all players care about you. Again, going back to target audience, I only play this one game mode. I don't care what devs are saying in message of the day systems or forums or social media or whatever it is. I'm so sucked into my own habits as a player that I don't care what the devs say. The only way you can fix that is if you talk to that audience and just promote the hell out of your content. This example here is a great example from Psionics. We have a great esports program with them, and they promoted it in game because you can't miss it if it's in game, right? They're making sure everyone who plays their game actually sees this. This is an example I pulled from my email. Apologies to Justin if he's here because his email's shown. Bungie then revealed this is a press release that's saying, hey, on this day, this thing's gonna happen. Come and watch. At that point, if you're looking at the viewership of this content, it doesn't do well, then there's another problem. But if you do all this, you're setting yourself up to succeed. And this is a picture of a faceless manipulator. If you don't know what this is from Hearthstone and Warcraft. It is kind of random, but I didn't know what else to put here. A faceless manipulator in Hearthstone copies the cards that it's targeted at. And my last best practice is adapt and adopt. I don't think great content has ever been created in a vacuum. I don't think any company has ever done it right from the get-go. And the importance here is copy. Copy the hell out of your competitors, copy out other devs, watch what people are doing, and adapt your content to it. That's how you're going to make the content that fits best for you. That's how you're always going to stay ahead of the curve. So with that said, that concludes my presentation. There are 4 other presentations and panels I want to highlight throughout this weekend. The first is going to be tomorrow from Sean, who works in my team, and it will feature 4 or 5 game companies talking about how they use Twitch to build a community.